I've been thinking lately about fiction and reality, about stories and witnessing. And today, in a conversation on Twitter with a colleague, I typed something in, and suddenly this memory came back to me that brought those things together and reminded me of a story that I wanted to tell you. So I thought I would. I was mentioning to Isabel Badinand that I was reading 1984, and she said, The Handmaid's Tale is next. And I thought, I'm already having enough trouble reading 1984. And the enthusiasm to pick up The Handmaid's Tale, even though that's pretty much what's on my reading list next. To pick it up and reread it, there's this real resistance. There's this, I feel like I'm moving against a wind that wants to blow me back. And it's like I don't want to see. When I said see, I remembered something I'd seen. I think it was the mid-90s. And a friend, Dorothy, came to me and asked if I'd accompany her to a retreat. She was elderly and not well enough to drive. And I really wanted to go to the retreat, but it was out in the woods and I had no car. So it was perfect. And so we head off to this private artist retreat. And I guess she'd, brought it to me because she knew we'd been talking about the fact that I started studying fine arts at Concordia. And she was a working artist. In fact, part of my inspiration to do watercolor was seeing just an amazing painting of hers in a friend's house over the mantelpiece. And I would look at it and go, wow, if only I could do that. I was just a kid then, and you just never know where inspiration's going to take you. So here we were, Dorothy and I, making the long ride to Algonquin Park, which is kind of a special place for a lot of Canadians, kind of magical. Huge nature reserve. And it was a group of artists who'd known each other for years, who met periodically. And they had invited Luci Shaw, an American poet, to lead this particular retreat on writing. It was a writer's retreat. And Luci Shaw was friends with one of the women who had inspired me, Madeleine L'Engle, an American poet and author. And it just, wow, all the pieces seemed to fit. So off we went. I grabbed my pup tent, threw it in the back of the car, and away we went. And I don't remember when it was. So I got out I knew that I had one of her poetry books, and I knew that the retreat was written after this book came out, Writing the River. So I pulled out this book, and inside it I discovered this exercise from the retreat. So obviously the retreat was after publishing this book. It's great. It's a little drawing. It's a concept map. It's the kind of thing I do with my clients. And the question at the bottom is the kind of question I've been asked by my coaches and that I share also with my clients. So this is a meditation on a metaphor. And I remember picking the metaphor of grass. Somewhere there's a poem I wrote, but it's not here. Cool. Looks like I was dealing with metaphor and these powerful questions long before I was a coach. But what's interesting is she has this theme comes up a couple of times in this book where she talks about sort of stumbling across yourself later and seeing that it was already there. And so I want to read you this poem of hers called Finding Myself, just to set the stage. And I'll tell you the story of this amazing night at this retreat. It's really left a mark on me. So here's the poem called Finding Myself by Luci Shaw. I am leaving a trail of crumbs, broken off from my body to feed friends or the birds. Or so I've always felt as I shoulder the branches aside and strike deep into the woods, where grass overgrows the old tracks. Ahead of me now, on the dark ground, abruptly shines a white thing. It wicks like a lamp, and another. I hear myself humming an old song around as I stoop and finger my own blaze of bread, turned hard as bone. There's really something of that poem in this story I want to tell you. We had another writing exercise toward the end of the first day. And part of the exercise was to go for a walk. We were on this camping place. There was cabin for eating and meeting. There was a cabin, maybe a couple cabins for communal sleeping in sort of dormitories. I was sleeping out in my tent under a tree, which was awesome. And so we all went for a walk. I crossed the street into this unkempt field. I don't know, perhaps at one time it had been a farmer's field, but now it was just woods and meadows. And I went for a walk with the question they had given us and came back. And we went to dinner, and somebody noticed that someone was missing. We started asking around. Nobody'd seen her. Where was she? She wasn't well known among the group. And I remember questioning, I was thinking, is she diabetic? Could she be lying in the woods somewhere needing medication? We went through her belongings to see if we could get some indication of if there was something medication that she might need, or while others went and looked for her. And we didn't find her. Night fell and we were fretting. It was August, so she wasn't going to freeze overnight, but what had happened to her? Where was she? The rescue team showed up. I don't know who does this in Canada. Some kind of rangers or police. They showed up and they asked some questions, got themselves organized, and said they were going to go out and look for her. And we said, we want to come. They said, no, you guys don't have any experience doing this. You can't come. We said, we want to help. It was pouring rain. We were really worried about her at this point, because rain can really chill you to hypothermia out in the country like that. They looked at us standing there. I guess they could see we were serious. And they warned us, if you guys don't follow orders, we could end up looking for more of you. All right, we will follow orders. They gave us clear instructions. Took us across the street into the woods. We didn't have enough flashlights for everyone. And so this is the way we worked. We took turns in different roles. We split into multiple teams. We took different routes. So we were on one path through the woods. And as we got out from under the sky and into the woods kind of closed around us, I'm telling you, when there's no city nearby, it's dark. So I had my turn, standing in the middle of the path in the dark as the people with flashlight spread out into the woods. And the plan was to take 10 steps. Stop. Everyone call her name. Take 10 more steps into the woods. Call her name. Listen. Looking around with the flashlights. Head back. Head back where? I was standing in the dark, calling them back to the road. Then we'd move on. Stop. And repeat it. What a lonely sound, calling somebody's name in the woods like that and hearing nothing back. It was my turn to take the flashlight, which seemed like a relief because I had the light. And took 10 steps into the woods. Looking around. Stopped. We called her name. We could hear the other groups calling in other parts of the woods, but there was no answer. Took 10 more steps. Stopped. Flashed around with the flashlight, called her name. We went on like this for, 40 minutes or an hour in the pouring rain. And somewhere through it, I realized I wasn't actually looking. Because I was afraid that my flashlight would fall on an unconscious hand lying in the leaves in this dark maple bush. I thought, this won't do. And then I started really purposefully shining that flashlight and looking for her because it was important. We spent the amount of time that they had given us. Then they'd been clear we had to come back. So we went back. But nobody found her. We went back into the lodge. Agreed we'd done what needed to be done and left the search with the experts. She showed up the next morning. Thank God. She'd found shelter in some kind of a shack and spent the night there. She'd been doing the exercise and I guess lost in her thoughts. She'd lost track of the path and couldn't figure out which way was back. That moment's always stuck with me. The moment where I went from holding a flashlight and turning my head to using the flashlight and really looking at what was there, even though I was frightened, because it was important. As a coach, when a client is struggling with something, I can see that they're afraid. The Canadian in me wants to say, oh, this is awkward. Let's look somewhere else. Yeah. We don't have to go there. Let's not and say we did. We say at home. As a coach, say, "You're afraid." Yeah, I'm afraid. And together we hold that space to see how it transforms by naming it. What is it that we really want? This feels like what I'm doing right now with the book I'm reading and with the unfolding political situation, with, for example, the scientific divisions of the United States government being muzzled. And I want to be angry and resentful, and that just feels like pointing my flashlight and turning my head. I really need to look, and so I've been looking. And I've decided that witnessing this is part of my duty as a citizen. In Canada, we don't use the word civic duty much, but I've rediscovered it lately. Even though I live far away in Germany now, the world's not so big by the internet, and our fates are incredibly intertwined. And I've decided I won't look away. I won't look away. And in doing so, I'm learning things about what's important to me. I've changed my habits and how I use my energy on social media. I've looked into what's happening where I live and noticed that there's something I can do. The next important democratic elections are coming up in Europe, in France, which is right next door to where I live, and here in Germany. These books, these dystopias, I ate them up when I was young. A list as long as my arm. I think they gave me a way to see when I choose to. I'm really thankful for the journalists that are the flashlight, looking out for the dark spots that we need to look into. I'm thankful for their work, and I've decided I'm going to honor it by selectively opening my eyes and really looking. When we came out of the woods that night, there's this magical moment where we came out onto the road and out of the cover of the trees, and suddenly the clouds, which had been really heavy with rain, they broke. And there was this incredibly beautiful moonscape. It was just magical. I mean, massive, beautiful white clouds, stars and the moon. And that image has stayed with me forever. Inextricably linked to those dark moments under the trees. I'd like to read you one more of her poems. I begin to understand how weather, by Luci. The wet gusts that all Friday afternoon swept the mountains with their gray silk skirts, their cold cloth rinsed my face, have calmed and recombined tonight in this placid black backwater under my cabin window. They show their stormy origins. Ripples, fretted like clouds and liquid light, dodging an awkward moon that stares, double-faced, from sky, from water. I begin to understand how weather, like verse, like music, plays with pieces of the past, makes new of old, turns up the ribbed silver on the underside of the leaf. From God knows where, miracles come. And for you, I am making this small, fresh blessing from fall and rain.